But yeah, welcome to the meeting. We've got Rosie here today from the food team in the council from Public Health to talk about the two funds which are up and open at the moment. So yeah, when you're ready, Rosie.
Yeah, brilliant. Hi everyone, it's great to see you on the call, and I know that a lot of people will be looking forward to watching this, so thank you so much in advance for taking the time to watch this. Sorry that it'll just be a lot of me talking, but hopefully it will be really helpful. I think everyone on this call has already received Emergency Food Aid Fund funding, so hopefully you'll find that the application form isn't super different, which might be a bit of a relief, but we can definitely talk about the differences and things like that. And so I will share my screen. Oh, Florence, I think you need to enable screen sharing.
Yeah, sure. Where are we? Is it in advanced sharing options, all participants? There we go.
Okay, so I'll share my screen and no one else share their screen. Don't take control of the meeting, as tempting as it might be. Brilliant. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. So this is the application form for the first of the funds. I'll talk primarily about the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund today, and then I'll just talk very briefly about the kind of differences on the form. Lots of things are quite similar. Lots of things are also similar to the Emergency Food Aid Fund. So if you did apply for that, then you'll see that lots of the details and documents that you need to provide are the same, which hopefully means it will be quicker and easier. So just to start off with, in terms of talking about the two different funds. So for context, we already had the Emergency Food Aid Fund, which was for food primarily, and then other consumables. So that was baby supplies, hygiene products, and pet food where appropriate. So we've had that already. And then these two funds are more around sort of capacity building and kind of slightly less of that kind of urgent need for consumables. So the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund is for similar sorts of projects. The Emergency Food Aid Fund, sorry, I will at some point start muddling up those two names, but bear with. If it's got the word affordable at the front, then I'm talking about the equipment one. So we've got the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund, which is for equipment and infrastructure for projects basically providing food to people who are struggling with food insecurity. This application form in this grant scheme is a bit wider than the previous one. So for the Emergency Food Aid Fund, it was only for food projects, so people already providing food. And one of the criteria for receiving the funding was being able to demonstrate existing work in food insecurity. Whereas this one is a bit wider. So if you're an organisation which is providing support, general support for vulnerable people. So it doesn't have to be food, it can be things like debt advice, or even things like counselling for different types of people who are vulnerable and who are struggling to afford food. Then there is the opportunity in this grant scheme for you to be able to purchase equipment that would help you to start being able to provide food for people who are using your services and for people who are food insecure. But there is still that emphasis on helping people who are struggling to afford food. So as you can see in this application form, I'll just take you through it. I'll read it out, and then that hopefully will make things clear, and I'll clarify anything that isn't clear. So first of all, the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund. So just to note that the application deadline is midday on the 17th of March 2023. So I think that's 3 weeks from today. And so it kind of talks about the fund first of all. So this fund has been set up to support projects seeking to increase their capacity and infrastructure in order to provide food to Birmingham residents. Examples of such projects include food banks, food clubs, food pantries, social supermarkets, on-street feeding and community cafes. But as kind of alluding to what I was saying before, we will also accept applications from organisations working with vulnerable residents seeking to set up or improve food-related support. Only organisations whose on-the-ground work/activities are based in Birmingham local authority area will be eligible. So as long as you're operating in Birmingham and you have activities in Birmingham, you can apply. So even if the kind of correspondence address maybe, or the postal address or PO box or something like that is outside Birmingham, that's not a problem. But there is a section in the application form where you fill in where your activities are, and that needs to be Birmingham, not just a B postcode, but it actually has to be in Birmingham Local Authority, and we do check the postcodes just because it's Birmingham Local Authority funding. So the fund consists of a grant of up to £3,000 for infrastructure and equipment to increase the capacity of Birmingham's food project for food provision, ideally for providing more food that is nutritious, culturally appropriate and safe and hot where appropriate to more people in ways that enable dignity, choice and or socialisation. And so then a few things that the funds can be used for, just to clarify. So they can be used for equipment such as fridges, freezers, cookers, thermal boxes, shelving, other food storage solutions and smaller equipment such as chopping boards. You can use the funds for room/storage space hire costs if this would increase the capacity of the project. So just on the room hire thing, so we're asking for projects not to apply just for their kind of normal room hire, if that makes sense, but rather that would kind of increase the space they have in order to kind of increase their capacity. So not just business as usual, but rather kind of we're really focusing on that increased capacity, what can help you reach more people or provide more food. And then funds can be used for more expensive infrastructure. So that's infrastructure over the kind of cap of £3,000. So say, for example, a refrigerated van, which is obviously much more than £3,000. But you need to be able to evidence that you have the money to be able to kind of pay for the rest of that. So you can use it towards things, but you need to be able to still evidence that purchase and show us that you'll be able to purchase that with the money. And then just to clarify, funds cannot be used for food or other consumables because that was what the Emergency Food Aid Fund was for, and we're trying to keep these separate. It can't be used for core costs such as transport, so things like fuel. It can't be used for, obviously it can be used to purchase vehicles themselves like the refrigerated van, but not for things like fuel or reimbursing volunteers, train travel, things like that. It can't be used for staffing or volunteer costs. And it can't be used for equipment given to individuals to use at home. So, for example, I know that of projects that, for example, are purchasing slow cookers for people at home, that is beyond the scope of the project because it's for kind of specifically this grant is for funds which would increase the capacity of a food project to be able to provide food. So it's equipment for the project itself. However, if you do want to be purchasing equipment to give to individuals, that is the sort of thing that you can apply for the other fund, which I'm going to talk about today, which is the Birmingham Food Legends Fund. So for things to be given to individuals, Birmingham Food Legends Fund, for equipment for your own project to stay in your project, Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund. I hope that makes sense, but do come back to me. And just to say, as always, do feel free to email me at any point if you're not sure about which grant scheme to apply for. I know it's a bit confusing and they're coming out at the same time, but do email us at foodsystemph@birmingham.gov.uk with any clarifications, particularly if you need to clarify which grant scheme you should be applying for. So hopefully that makes it clear what funds can and can't be used for. So we do ask applicants to consider the environment and sustainability where possible. So, for example, buying reusable equipment rather than disposables, because that's one of our key pillars of the Birmingham Food System Strategy, and we want to be trying to ensure these solutions are as sustainable as possible. Now, this is really important, and this is a difference between the Emergency Food Aid Fund. So we do ask organisations filling in this application form with the proposal of the infrastructure equipment they want to spend the money on, if successful. The main thing is to please calculate your costings. So that's different to the Emergency Food Aid Fund. So in the Emergency Food Aid Fund, some people gave costings as a demonstration of need because that's what we were asking for in that fund. For this one, it is really important that you say what equipment you want to buy and you assign a cost to it. And if you send me an application which doesn't have costings, I will send you an email back and say, please add some costings. So to preempt us having an email chain discussion, although you might want that, but preferably, please include costings in your application form, because one of the criteria for us assessing the application form is looking at those costings. So there needs to be costing. So saying we'll spend £3,000 on this isn't enough. So it might be, for example, that you want to spend the full £3,000 on, I'm trying to think of an example, on pots and pans. In that case, you would need to say something like, for the smaller equipment, you know, we could buy with this fund 300 pots and pans at £10 each. I hope I've done the maths right there, but you kind of, so say the price of the equipment unit and then the kind of number that you'd be able to buy for smaller equipment. And then for larger equipment, like a fridge, just say sort of one fridge for £1,500, one freezer for £1,500. So do give the costings for kind of each item. And if it's multiple of the same, say kind of what the individual cost is and then the number that you'll be getting, because that will just help us to assess your application as well as possible, when it kind of puts you in the best position to have your application approved if you give us those costings. So also just a few things to note on this. Things are at the panel's discretion in terms of what to fund. So depending on things like the number of applications and stuff, we're keen to be flexible in terms of this. So say you put in an application for, to use the example I was using earlier, a fridge for £1,500 and a freezer for £1,500. And the fridge seems really well justified, and you've kind of really explained that well. But actually then the freezer, while still useful, would be a kind of desirable rather than essential. We can, at the kind of discretion of the panel, decide to just fund one of those things, not both. So you won't necessarily, I'm hopeful that the organisations will get kind of everything that they fund, but just because we are anticipating lots of applications, we want to help as many organisations as possible. It might be that we fund some of the application, but not all, if the application is accepted. Just be aware of that. If you're not sure where to start with the costings, then have a look at the NISBIT's website. That's really useful. And just to say that the amount that we fund you can't change after the application form has been submitted. So that will be the number that we base what we fund you on. So do make sure that application and those costings are as accurate as possible. And again, do feel free to kind of email and clarify if you're not sure. We can try and work out what something would cost where possible. But yeah, do try and be as accurate as possible on those. And then the money for this grant is a one-time payment. So it's not like the Emergency Food Aid Fund where you get instalments. For this one, we've said, right, £3,000 for a fridge and a freezer. Here you go and spend it. So slightly different. So for this application for the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund, we have got some principles for you to justify the proposal on. So again, this is slightly different from the Emergency Food Aid Fund, where you just needed to demonstrate need. Here, because people are proposing new ideas and new projects, we have a few principles that we'd like you to meet. You don't need to meet all of these principles, but you do need to meet at least one, and ideally as many as possible. So this one is the kind of non-negotiable one. So this one is for direct food provision. So it is for food that's being given out to people who are food insecure, as I said before, to kind of increase that capacity to be able to do that. So it isn't for growing or food waste initiatives. It is for food provision to people. And again, for growing or food waste initiatives, have a look at the Birmingham Food Legends Fund, which is the other grant scheme that's going on. And then here are some other principles. So enable dignity and choice. So that might be, for example, promoting a food pantry or club and social supermarket models. So maybe a food bank wants to start running a food pantry and club alongside their food bank. That we know that there's evidence to suggest that that really helps improve people's dignity and choice if they're in a slightly less acute financial crisis, by being able to provide, by being able to purchase quite a lot of food for quite a small amount of money. So that's enable dignity and choice. Also enable provision of nutritious food. Actually, food insecurity, I think this is an easy thing to forget sometimes, is a lack of access to nutritious food due to a lack of money or other resources. And often people who are food insecure tend to just eat things which aren't very healthy for them, that fill them up long term, and it's totally understandable why people do that. But actually, for long-term health and for people to be able to thrive, they need to be eating fresh fruit and veg where possible. They need to be eating nutritious food, beans and pulses, protein. So for this grant in particular, we're really keen to help food projects to be able to provide nutritious food where they can. Also provision of hot food, so for example with equipment like thermal boxes. Again, during the cost of living crisis, we know that due to fuel price issues, people have not been, for example, turning their cookers on and have just been eating cold food because it's cheaper. So if there is a way that you can provide people with hot food to give them a hot meal in the day, then that's the sort of thing that we're looking for again as another principle. Also provision of safe food. We would hope that our projects in Birmingham are providing safe food, but if there are things that will help you provide safer food, for example, colour-coded chopping boards, so you know the green ones for vegetables and the red ones for fish, blue ones for fish, I can't remember the colours, but you know, there's different things that make it really easy to provide that kind of different chopping boards for different type of food, that sort of thing for safe provision. Things that enable provision of culturally appropriate food, and we know that our community in Birmingham is so diverse, and we want to really be honouring and respecting different people and their cultures and their heritages through the food that we provide. So if there are ways that you can provide culturally appropriate food through this grant, we'd love to see proposals for that. Also things that enable socialization, so whether that's communal dining approaches, and we know, for example, that it works really well for a food pantry to do, or a food bank to do their sort of a virtual queuing or ticketing system while having a hot meal before the food pantry opens, as a really dignified way of kind of accessing that. So if you need things like tables and chairs or a cooker to be able to do a kind of communal dining or community cafe type approach, in addition to the project that you're already running, that's the sort of another principle there is enabling socialization. And then finally, this one is the kind of, again, a non-negotiable one. This is what we want you to be able to do through this fund, is we want you to be able to increase capacity. So hopefully that will be number of people helped, but also sort of secondary maybe to that, the amount of food that you're able to store. So things like storage solutions. You don't need to meet all these principles, as I've already said, but we will be assessing applications based on how well they meet some of these principles. So you do need to meet at least one of those principles, ideally a few of them. So just to give some examples of the sorts of proposals we're looking for, again, for any clarifications, or if you're not sure if this is the sort of thing that we're looking for, do email us at foodsystemph@birmingham.gov.uk. So for example, a food bank utilising the funds to help start a food pantry alongside their usual food bank to provide fresh and nutritious food and enable dignity and choice for those not in such an acute crisis. A food project purchasing a fridge in order to provide safe, fresh, nutritious and culturally appropriate food alongside their normal ambient food that they provide. A food pantry or club using the funds to purchase tables and a slow cooker in order to provide communal dining approaches and opportunities. As I said before, a food bank purchasing a hot water urn and mug so that people can be provided with a hot drink on arrival. Again, we know that that's really good for dignity. Everyone loves a cup of tea, don't they? It makes you feel at home. So that sort of thing to increase that would also come under dignity and choice, being able to provide a hot drink. And then a non-food project supporting vulnerable residents who use their services but are unlikely to go to a food bank, purchasing a fridge and shelves so they can give out culturally appropriate food parcels to their service users. And finally, just an example, a community cafe replacing an old poor quality oven so that more meals can be cooked more efficiently, providing nutritious and hot food in their cafe. So those are some examples. As I said, feel free to clarify and ask me questions by email. So just to be really transparent about the criteria that we're using, again, with the Emergency Food Aid Fund, we're really clear about what we're assessing these applications on. We think that's really important. So the applications will be scored based on the following criteria. I've sort of said some of these already, but existing work addressing food insecurity or supporting vulnerable citizens, having a justifiable proposal with adequate costings. That was why I said you've got to have your costings in there, and value for money. Meeting the principles above, so that's the kind of nutritious, safe, hot, culturally appropriate, etc., and location. And so for this one, we know that there are fewer projects in certain areas of really high need, particularly the Hodge Hill, Perry Bar and Yardley constituencies in Birmingham. So projects in those areas will score slightly higher, but if you're not in that area, do still apply. There are plenty of places. So you know, I want to be really clear that we're not only accepting applications from those areas, please apply wherever you are in Birmingham. We want to receive your application, but we recognise there are some areas where there is particularly a low provision and a high need. So we do want to help them in that. So for monitoring purposes, so this is just a flag right now. If you're successful, there's a few monitoring type things. Again, like the Emergency Food Aid Fund, please send us the receipt of the equipment purchased. So again, we'll just send it to our email address, the photo of the receipt. That's been working well for the Emergency Food Aid Fund. We've been getting lots of receipts. And then just for this one as well, because it's a sort of increasing impact type thing rather than just kind of helping get food out. We ask you to please provide a report after 3 months of what the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund has helped you do in terms of capacity. And that will basically ask you to kind of say, basically the questions will be, what was the fund used for? So similar to your application, how did it increase capacity? And it will ask you numbers before and after. So it might be worth even now just noting the numbers before. So that you can know what the after numbers are and what the difference is. And then it will basically list those principles that I've just gone through. So did it help you provide hot food? Yes or no? How did it help you provide hot food? Did it help you provide culturally appropriate food? Yes or no? How did it help you to do that? So that's basically what the impact report will consist of. It sounds a bit scary, impact report, but it's not really. It's just kind of answering some questions about what the funds helped you to do. So then moving on, just a few admin type things. So email us this application form to foodsystemph@birmingham.gov.uk. This is important because we had a few applications get sort of lost in the ether. So if you don't receive an email confirming receipt of your application, or in fact, there is an immediate way of knowing this, there is an out of office reply on the food system PH email. So if you receive an out of office that basically says thank you for applying, then you know that the application has been received. If you don't receive that and you don't receive an email confirmation receipt saying we've received your application, thank you, please email it to us again. If you still don't get anything, please try and send it from another email address, because we're having a few issues just in terms of certain email addresses don't seem to come through. So try and send it from another email address, but do just kind of make sure that it's been received, but hopefully that email will provide confirmation. So as I said, the deadline for the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund is the 17th of March, and our panel will assess these applications on the 21st of March, after which we'll let you know the status of your application, so whether it was successful or not. And if you are successful, we'll ask you to sign a condition of grant aid. Again, if you have been successful for the Emergency Food Aid Fund, you'll know what one of these looks like. So we just ask that you provide your signature and send that back to us by email. And then that's where you include your bank details as well. And that is also when you need to send us your supporting documents. And those supporting documents are the same as the ones that were for the Emergency Food Aid Fund, but as ever, worth kind of having them ready so that when we send you that condition of grant aid form, the COGA, you can send it all back to us in one go, because that really does streamline the process. We did have a few organisations for the Emergency Food Aid Fund that were quite slow to get us those documents, and it did mean that they didn't receive the funds as quickly, because we do need to have received all of those documents in order to send you the money if you're successful. So then just going through the questions, these are, as I said, really quite similar and quite straightforward, but hopefully, and yeah, if you do have any questions about these questions, that sounds funny. If you have any questions about the questions, just send me an email. So again, your organisation, so that would be, that's where you kind of put the details about your organisation. So that would be kind of Food Bank X. So the details there. You need to list what type of organisation you are and give the registration number, please. And then a few questions here. Have you been awarded another grant by Birmingham City Council in the last 12 months? The answer to that doesn't affect your ability to receive the funds. And also worth noting that if you have received the Emergency Food Aid Fund, you can still apply for this one. There's no kind of exclusivity choice type thing. You can apply. You can also apply for this and the Birmingham Food Legends Fund if you want. So you can apply for basically all the different funds. They don't stop you from being able to apply for others. Are you a member of the Food Justice Network? Are you already a food project? If no, is your organisation/project involved with supporting vulnerable citizens in Birmingham? And just a question for another project that we're working on, we're just interested to see if organisations are currently serving hot meals, and if so, how many? Contact for this application and additional contact, that's again fairly straightforward. So that would be your details and then the details of someone else. Please do provide that second person. Again, for the Emergency Food Aid Fund, we did have a few people who were off sick for whatever reason, or their email started bouncing. And so having that second email address is really useful if something goes wrong. So please do provide 2 separate people. Then details about your project. So where do the activities take place? This is the one that has to be in Birmingham Local Authority. So please say the main address of where things take place here, and then please do give other details and be as comprehensive as possible. If you're working across a few different sites, please write them all. If one of those isn't in Birmingham, that's fine. You have to have something operating in Birmingham Local Authority. Please give postcodes. We love postcodes, they're really helpful. So then we ask you to give a brief summary of your project. So just tell us the sorts of things that you're doing, and then tell us specifically what work your organisation is doing, either in responding to food insecurity or supporting vulnerable citizens if you're not a food project. And also particularly, please also just say who is using your service. Please don't give any personal information or anything like that. But if you are able to give a bit of a sense of the sorts of people who are using the food project or the service, that's really helpful. And the support that you offer as well. So say, for example, are you a food bank, are you a community cafe, that sort of thing. So then moving on to the proposal. So this area, hopefully you can see that I've highlighted it on my screen. This is where you outline your proposal and you give the costings and you say kind of the value for money. So that's where you kind of give all these details in this top box. And then in the bottom box, you say how you meet these principles. I'd really recommend being explicit about how you meet the principles. So I know it's easy to just write enable provision of nutritious food and let us do the work ourselves, which is okay. But for kind of helping us to help you and fund your projects, it's really great if you can say, if you can basically list each of these if you meet them and how you meet them. So you might say, for example, enable provision of hot food. This proposal would help us provide hot food because thermal boxes are good for hot food. I know that sounds really obvious, maybe that's too obvious a one, but maybe with the nutritious food, it's just kind of spelling it out for us, just to make it really explicit that you meet those principles, because we are scoring them based on how well you meet the principles. So it's just really helpful to kind of be making those links and really just putting yourselves in the best position. Here, please tell us if you, please confirm that you pay living wage. If there are people in your organisations, we know lots of people are volunteers, that's fine, but we do ask that living wage is paid where possible. And then again, similar to the Emergency Food Aid Fund, you just need to provide details about your safeguarding. We ask for the safeguarding policy when we ask for the supporting documents, but here you just need to say about DBSs and why you don't have a DBS if the answer is no. And then again, just the same question as the Emergency Food Aid Fund about disruption and disorder, just so that we can kind of just double check that the sorts of things are happening. If you say no, there's never been any disruption or disorder, that's totally fine. We're not going to not fund you because of that. And if you say yes, there has been disorder and this is how we dealt with it, again, that doesn't change how we kind of fund the project. We just kind of need to know that, just to kind of just double check things around safeguarding. Then there's a declaration and a data protection statement, and you need to read those and sign the bottom of the application form, and then say your kind of details, and if possible have someone witness the form, but that doesn't need to be a kind of proper signature. You can just type if that's easier and email it back to us. So that is the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund application form. Does anyone on the call have any questions about that? As I said, you can email anytime with questions, but does anyone on the call have any questions about it?
Can I just check something that you said that I may or may not have picked up? You said that the money even if we buy equipment, is not to be used for giving things out to service users. I'm thinking particularly that we have thought for some time that some of our service users might need tin openers if we haven't got ring pulls on the tins, and they haven't got a tin opener. So that is something that we couldn't buy with this grant.
Yeah, no, I think ideally not.
That's fine. I'm just checking.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, with this and the Emergency Food Aid Fund, the hope is that in providing these sorts of funds, you're able to maybe just slightly move resources around. But yeah, thank you for clarifying, Gillian. That's really helpful. Yasmin, do you have a question?
Yes, I think you mentioned something about storage. That is one of the biggest problems we have is storage. Do you mean providing like funds for shelving units, or like I am currently looking to find a storage space and paying rent for that? Would that be allowed?
Yeah, so paying rent specifically to increase your storage is fine, and so room hire type costs for that is fine. It's just not like paying rent that you already pay for your project. So it needs to kind of increase capacity.
I'm looking for a new storage solution. So if we find someone and you mean paying rent, that'd be a great help to us.
Yeah. So that would be fine. Yeah, exactly. So that would definitely increase your capacity for storage by having storage space. And so yeah, that's definitely that sort of thing.
If I find somewhere and I find out how much the costing is, would I forward that to you and then you would make a decision from there? Yes,
exactly. So then you would fill in the application form just as I've described, and you'd give details. I'm still showing, aren't I? So here you would put in this section, you'd say we want to have some storage space to increase our ability to store food. We found this shed in this bit of Birmingham, and that will cost us £1,000 to be able to rent. And then you would say down below, you would say this would help us to increase capacity to store X amount more food. So whatever, I'm literally making this up, but like this would help us to store 100 kilograms of food more per month. And that would help us to provide nutritious food to people who use our food bank. And it would also enable us to store more culturally appropriate food, therefore also meeting the culturally appropriate one. Does that make sense?
That's great. Thank you so much for that. Yes.
Yeah. And just to note again that the deadline for this is the 17th of March. So hopefully you'll find some storage solutions before then.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you so much.
Yeah, you'd fill in the application form as normal, but you can always attach, like, if you want to, you can always copy, attach the email where the person said, yes, you can hire this and it will cost this if you want.
Oh, my other question is, because although all our food bank work we deliver to people in Birmingham, I actually live in Solihull and my storage space wouldn't need to be in Solihull. Would that be a problem?
I don't think, as long as your activities are helping people in Birmingham, that would be fine.
Birmingham, yes.
Yeah, I guess just bear in mind the like kind of transport, so we can't pay for the fuel for transport. So so things like if you found a storage space but it was in London, I think we'd probably be a little bit careful. But I think Solihull is fine.
Thanks.
Yeah, as long as the activities are in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's the thing
to know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, which I know that yours are. So all good. Brilliant. Any kind of further questions on the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund? I don't think I've said it wrong yet, which I'm quite surprised by. Florence will know I get it wrong all the time. I'm really working hard in this meeting to say the right thing.
Yeah, you're doing really well.
So,
I think if we were trying to type infrastructure over and over again, we'd probably...
Yeah, I've really struggled to spell the word infrastructure, and it's a word I have to spell quite a lot with this grant scheme. So anyway, maybe you'll experience that as you fill in the application forms. So I'm just that's the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund. I'll just take you very quickly through the Birmingham Food Legends Fund, which is quite similar, so it won't be as long. I know that I've already talked for half an hour and you'll be more than bored of my voice. Let me just quickly find the other application form and just talk you through that.
Just while Rosie's doing that, Jill, I just sent you a message in the chat.
Yes, I'm just
Oh, have you
typing
seen it?
the drive,
Okay,
yes.
cool,
Yeah.
no problem. It doesn't tell you if they've seen it or not. Just be interested to know, just to everyone else, what I've written to Jill is to ask roughly how many tin openers she thinks you'd need for service users, because I'm always keen to hear about things like that so that I can just keep it in mind in case, you know, I can find someone to help in the future. So always let me know.
If you don't mind, Florence, would you let me know as well? Because we have that issue coming up a lot as well. We often give cans to people. If they haven't got the ring pulls, they'll say, can we swap it for something with the ring pull? Because they haven't got can openers. So yeah, it'd be great if you let me know as well, please. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. But I would say that it's useful to kind of always say, oh, I could do with 50 of these or 100 of these or things like that, because then if somebody approaches Fours or me, or I kind of hear of someone who I can maybe ask for a donation of things, then I have an idea of how many to ask for.
Okay,
so yeah, always let me know.
I'll email you, I'll text you the details. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And again, this just this session and just Florence having that kind of on the ground know-how and knowing what's going on is one of the reasons why we're really encouraging people to join the Food Justice Network. I think that all of you on the call today are already in the Food Justice Network, but just to say that it's such a valuable resource. And so if you're watching this and you're not in the Food Justice Network, then do join that, because it's a really valuable way that people doing this sort of work in Birmingham are able to connect with each other and share learning and things like that. So that's my little plug for the Food Justice Network.
Thank you. We've got an email address, which is foodjusticenetwork@theaws.org, if anyone would like to send over an email. And also thank you to Sharon from MLSS for coming. I see you said you've got to leave, so nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to the chat, but I can see Florence is, so that's good. Brilliant. So very quickly then on the Food Legends Fund, hopefully I've given you, through talking about the other one, an idea of the sorts of things that you wouldn't be able to apply for that one, but you can apply for this one, where this one's much more general. And do share both of these funds with people. There is quite a lot of resource that's available for these funds, so there is really do be sharing it with your networks and others you know who, particularly for this one, maybe you run a food bank but you know people who are doing a growing project. We can fund growing projects through this grant, so this is a great opportunity then for some of the kind of wider food related things that aren't maybe necessarily things like food banks but are doing really good food related work in Birmingham. So do be sharing. So this one, the deadline is 2 weeks today, so it's a week earlier than the first one. Same thing, application, send it to Food System PH. Always ask if you've got any questions. It's the same email address. And so, excuse me, just need to cough. So this one is to celebrate the launch of the Birmingham Food Revolution in 2023. We're running the Birmingham Food Legends Fund. This is a grant scheme to support initiatives which fit into our vision of creating a fair, sustainable and prosperous food system and economy where food options are nutritious, affordable and desirable so everyone can thrive. For this one, it's grants of up to £5,000 will be available, but we will accept applications for more than £5,000 if the proposal will have a significant impact on the Birmingham food system. We will accept applications from similar types of groups, so primarily community groups whose work is on the ground in Birmingham. Exactly the same caveats for this one in terms of location. And so these can be groups relating to growing, food provision and composting, business improvement districts, schools and other organisations in the food sector. Please note that private companies and sole traders aren't eligible for this grant, so you do need to be a kind of community group or be a registered charity or a CIE or a CIO. And for this one, we're looking for specific, actionable and timely proposals which can move at pace to start work on their proposed projects by the end of March. Again, we ask organisations to fill in this application form. Again, please calculate your own costings, so exactly the same as the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund. Please be working out your own costings and putting them into the proposal. Again, that's really important. Again, we're kind of scoring based on things like costings and value for money. And again, we can't change the amount after you've submitted the application form if successful. So again, just really important to have accurate costings. Things like the Nisbets website, again, really useful for that. So yeah, please be accurate with costings. Again, this will be a one-time payment. So unlike the Emergency Food Aid Fund, which was monthly instalments, this is all in one go. Funds can't be spent on food or other consumables or core costs such as room hire, transport on costs or staffing. Just to note on the staffing side, that is staffing as a core cost. So you can't fund the job of someone in your organisation, for example. However, if your project requires you to have, for example, someone to teach a cooking class, that can be funded. So it's just that's the kind of core costs in terms of staffing. Again, please do clarify if you're not sure about that. I know that that one is a bit tricky and I have to get my head around it sometimes and work it out. But yeah, so core costs, no, but other things, yes. Hopefully I've been clear enough about the sorts of things that we want for the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund. So I won't need to do that last little caveat, but it just says please apply if you want equipment for a food bank type project. So this one, again, like the principles of the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund, we have some different work streams. Well, that's because it links to the strategy. Work stream sounds a bit fancy, but we basically have some streams of work to fit your proposal into one of these different streams or more. So that is food production, empowering and enabling citizens and local producers to grow food throughout the year and connect to the city's food system. Food sourcing, actually I'll do the examples when I read out the work stream. So food production, empowering and enabling citizens and local producers to grow food throughout the year and connect to the city's food system. So example projects for that might be community growing for people without access to green space, homegrown veg kits, or portable greenhouses to use on land not suitable for growing. Food sourcing is increasing both supply and demand for local, environmentally sustainable, ethical and nutritious foods in the food system. So an example for that might be cargo bikes for food sourcing solutions. Food transformation is relating to transforming the food offer and diets to contain more diverse, nutritious and sustainable ingredients and less fat, salt and sugar. So an example of that one might be taster sessions to explore different nutritious ingredients with a youth group. Food waste and recycling, so minimising food waste and sustainable packaging throughout the food system and maximising repurposing and redistribution of surplus food. So that might include things like composting in a community space, a meal planning project for care leavers to help them waste less food, and also sessions to explore things like use by dates, how to use all of food and minimise waste with people in a community centre. The next one is food economy and employment, which is facilitating a thriving local food economy for all and maximising training and employment purposes. So that might include inspiring people to join the food sector in secondary schools or setting up a pop-up market / stall in a community space. Then you've got food safety and standards, so improving food safety and standards for Birmingham citizens and businesses. So an example of that one might be funding for a hygiene course for volunteers at a community food project. And finally, the last one is food skills. I really stumbled over that S. Food skills and knowledge, empowering citizens with knowledge and skills in relation to the food system. So that might include cooking classes to teach adults or children cooking skills and innovative approaches to increasing food skills and knowledge for Birmingham citizens. And then there are a few different kind of other things just to meet which are in line with the Birmingham food system strategy. So we're looking for proposals that follow these key principles. So collaborating, strengthening partnerships and building on good practice, empowering, so removing barriers and facilitating solutions, and equalising, so focusing actions where they're needed most to reduce inequalities, which I know that almost everyone watching this through the Food Justice Network will be involved with. And we also ask proposals to demonstrate how they are people-focused, working towards our ambition and addressing key priorities, and effective and realistic. And those are clearer down below in the actual application form. We give some examples of what that means. So if you read that and you panic, don't panic. We give more examples further down in the application form of the things you need to meet those. So just to say that up front. And just to say, I've given some examples. This is not a complete or comprehensive list of the things that we're looking for. I think the thing that I really love about this grant scheme is it's kind of open to you. It's like, what innovative solution have you come up with that I have never even thought about for the food system in Birmingham? And we're already receiving some really cool and interesting and innovative applications for this, which is great. So this is kind of recognizing your own ability and your own power to know your communities and make change. So just, yeah, again, you can always email to clarify about the project if you're not sure if it fits in, but this is kind of really open to you. Like, tell us what you think needs to change in Birmingham. So again, criteria, quite similar. Based in Birmingham, align with the food system vision, which is the thing I read at the beginning, having a justifiable proposal. So again, including accurate costings and value for money, and meeting the principles and priorities. This one, again, is emailing receipts and an impact report. And so similarly, it'll kind of list those different priorities and things, and it'll ask you how you met them and whether you met them. Again, please just make sure that we have received your email. If you haven't received the out of office and or an email receipt, confirmation receipt after kind of 2 working days, then do resend that. And if you still don't get anything back, please resend from another email address, because we have been having issues with receiving some emails. For this one, the panel to assess these applications will meet on the 13th of March, after which you'll hear about whether your application has been successful. Again, there'll be a COGA to sign, some bank details to give, and some supporting documents. These are all, again, the same as the Emergency Food Aid Fund and the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund. But again, just to note that we'll require copies of certain documents. So please, as you kind of apply, make sure they're ready to go. That's really helpful in getting the funds to you as quickly as possible. So please try and make sure that you have your constitution, insurance policy, safeguarding policy, health and safety policy, food hygiene certificate where appropriate, and data control policy where appropriate ready, so that when we ask you for them, if you're successful, you can send them back to us nice and quickly, and we can give you the money as quickly as possible. So just the questions in the last 10 minutes of this meeting. So again, the same questions about your organisation. Please confirm the type of organisation that you are, the same things here. Main contact, again, please give 2 contacts for the same reasons that I gave before. Again, please list your main address, including your postcode, and then all the other different addresses of where your work might be. Please, again, give a summary of your project, including the number of different people that are served through your project. And then this is a slightly different one to previously. So outline the work that your organisation is currently doing in line with our vision, which is creating a fair, sustainable and prosperous food system and economy where food options are nutritious, affordable and desirable so everyone can thrive. And again, please just note the type of people using your service without using any personal identifiable information. And then similarly, please outline your proposal and include costings in this box here under your proposal. Please kind of explain why you've come to this conclusion and justify the need for it, and tell us the impact that this would have on the people using your service, or on Birmingham, or on the food system in Birmingham. And then please tell us how you meet these principles. So again, a bit like the Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund, you need to meet at least one, but do kind of list all of them if you meet all of them. And so again, do say kind of collaborate, we meet this principle because da, 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 rather than just saying collaborate, just because that really helps us to draw out how you meet that project, how you meet that principle. And then again, so here, please use this place to explain how your proposal is people focused, which is putting systems first, celebrating diversity and empowering. The box below, please use this space to demonstrate how your proposed initiative works towards our ambition and addresses our key priorities, which are addressing poverty and inequalities, ensuring food is healthy and safe, environmentally sustainable and economically sustainable as well. So just making sure that it's not, the economically sustainable one is basically like making sure it's not going to kind of crash and burn, that it is kind of viable, that those costs are going to be used for something that will last, or at least have a lasting legacy. And then use this space to explain how your proposed initiative is effective and realistic, so evidence-based, cost-effective, risk-aware and resilient, scaled and paced, and learning and improving. So that's things like what's the evidence, like how have you shown that you've seen what the evidence is and kind of come to this conclusion. So tell us why you think it's needed, how it's cost-effective. Are you kind of helping communities be more resilient? Are you able to kind of work at pace to get this off the ground fairly quickly, or is it going to take like years and years, because we don't want things that are going to take forever and ever? And is it kind of learning, like where have you applied learning from things? Like where have you seen, oh, the people using our food bank have this issue, and so teaching them that particular skill would be really helpful. That sort of thing for that box. And then you just need to tick which of the work streams which I read out earlier does the proposal fit into. You can tick more than one, but you do need to tick one. Also, again, it's really helpful for us to know where in the food cycle or the food system this fits in. So that's just sort of like the life cycle of different foods. So if it's a growing project, it'll be in the food production side. If it's teaching skills, it'll be around the food consumption side probably. If it's a composting program, it'll be food waste in the cycle, just that sort of thing. So just helpful to know where that is in that. And then again, where does it fit in? So is it for people, so is it for children and young people, working age people, older adults? Again, you can tick more than one. And then just feel free to give us some more information about the target audience if you've got a particular group of people in mind. So that might be people living in temporary accommodation, that might be asylum seekers, that might be the LGBT community, that might be certain different types of people. So just give us as much information as possible, basically, around who you want this to be for. And then we're nearly at the end now. Thank you everyone for bearing with. Again, the living wage policy exactly the same as what I explained before, and the safeguarding stuff the same. And then declaration, something to sign, and then something to witness. So hopefully that is fairly self-explanatory and similar to the last form, sorry, but does anyone have any questions on that? That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the Food Legends Fund, but hopefully it makes sense. Is there anything in the chat that I've missed, Florence, or is it all good?
No, nothing in the chat either. I think you've explained it very well. And like you said, it's very similar to the emergency food aid application. So
yeah. Yeah, we have tried to kind of make them as similar and as simple as possible. So hopefully that kind of is evident, but there is just information that we need, and especially with these ones, because we're scoring them, it is great to just give as much detail as possible on how you meet, just make it basically as easy as possible for us to see how you meet those different things. I'd say that would be my kind of main bit of advice.
Sorry, one question, I don't know if I missed this. Do we have to email you to get the application form from you?
No, it's on the Birmingham City Council website. So if you Google Affordable Food Infrastructure Fund, or if you Google Birmingham Food Legends, and I think the links have been shared in the kind of FJN mailing list and WhatsApp group and things like that. So
yeah, they're in the WhatsApp.
That also works. Feel free to, you can also just email me for the application form as well. Thanks. I won't be like, no.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, whichever method works best for you.
Thanks.
Although I probably wouldn't appreciate like 1,000 people emailing me for an application form.
Okay.
1 or 2 is fine. Brilliant.
Lovely. Has anyone else got any more questions?
Stunned to silence. Ready for 5 PM on a Friday, I think.
I know. Almost the weekend.
Sorry if you're watching this and it's like 9 o'clock on a Monday morning.
It's Monday. That's awkward. But yeah,
it's
thank
Friday
you
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that, Rosie. It's really helpful. Much appreciated. And yeah, I'll send this out to the WhatsApp groups and mailing lists. So if anybody does a rewatch, and as Rosie said, any questions, email them foodsystemph@birmingham.gov.uk.
Yep.
Lovely.
I'm really looking forward to seeing all the different proposals and applications. So thank you so much, everyone. And as always, thank you so much for the fantastic work that you all do in our food system. It is amazing and it is appreciated hugely by us and by the residents of Birmingham. So huge thank you, and keep going.